Hi there, this is Alexander Hall for Viva Voce Week 9. So, for this week, I'm going to be talking to you about what we did this week and how I did for my assessment for Fountain Night on the Thursday, and also talking about what I've been doing for the rest of the week. Looking over any feedback that I've been getting from staff, how I'm going to be applying that for future, and also working on how to achieve that lot of feedback, and thinking of what I've done this week that's going to support my personal statement that I'm going to be sending off by the end of the term. So, firstly, what have we been doing this week? So, first of all, we combined jazz and tap together for the choreography of The Greatest Show. So, as we've already been taught our tap for The Greatest Show, we've now been able to combine tap and jazz together. So now we're kind of trying to combine them all as one. So we'll be able to use both use of dance to kind of combine what we've been working on as part of our criteria of dance for our course. And just seeing the versatility that you can give to, especially with The Greatest Showman, because The Greatest Showman is quite a versatile musical in terms of the different dances that you can use. You can use tap as a way of using some of the dance songs that you can do, like The Greatest Show. You can do it for things like This Is Me, maybe from now on. You can do you know, and thinking that tap is appropriate for The Greatest Showman, and also that jazz is actually quite appropriate for The Greatest Showman, because jazz is something that we use a lot for musical theatre, and we use for musicals themselves, whether they're movie musicals or whether they're just musicals that are part of the theatre. So it's trying to combine that tap and jazz are equally just as essential for musical theatre, and just saying that you can use them both as one choreography. So we did that. We also spent time blocking Fountain Night with the full Year 2s. So all the Year 2s coming together, because we wanted to block it for Winterfest, which is for the 12 Weeks Later show that we're going to be doing on the Tuesday, which is the 4th of December. So what we wanted to do for that was just block it as if we were to do it for the show itself. Then the next day we were then assessed with Year 2B, Year 2A, that they would be separately being assessed on the blocking of Fountain Night that we were blocked on last week for week 8. And so what we had to do was think about what we could use from what we did the day before, when we were all being blocked together for our Winterfest version of Fountain Night, and then just use that for our assessment with what we've been working on, and thinking about how we've been working on it as just a half of the level 3 Year 2s, and just using that together for the assessment. And then lastly, I then spent some time during my acting session, blocking the bastard monologue from King John, because I thought, Leanne gave us a free slot where we can just either translate our Shakespearean monologue, or we could learn our monologue. Spent the time just learning it and getting into the space, getting into the character, or just blocking it. If you already know the monologue, if you already know the translation, you've got the idea of how to get the character across. It's all about just thinking about the space and just using the space really clearly. So I thought, because I've learnt it, because I know the translation, I've got a kind of idea of how to deliver the monologue. I thought just work on how I might deliver it if I was to do it live, or how I'm going to be doing it when I'm being assessed on it. Because when it comes to being assessed on it, the one thing I want to make sure of is the way I'm positioning myself. So positioning myself in the right space, making sure it's all clear, and just making it look really natural as well. So it's really close and really quite realistic as well. Because with Shakespeare, because it's really quite ambiguous, the language is so ambiguous, the one thing that you've got to really get across is the characterization and the how you're reacting and thinking about the plot line before the monologue comes in. So thinking about why the bastard is speaking to King John the way he is and what the reason is for it. And so using the translated version of the monologue and the translation of the scene where the monologue's in is going to really help you as an actor to really push out what you need to do for when you're delivering the monologue. Because if you just learn the monologue, that's nothing. It's about what you do extra with it to make it stronger. And that's how it's going to make your performance so much more effective and so much more mesmerizing. So the one thing that I would always say on that perspective is just think about the spacing, think about the posture you're going to give to your character, and just let it happen naturally, and just use all the little resources that you've got, and then just go straight in. And as soon as you get your assessment, just give it the best shot you can do and see how it works. I mean, who knows what could happen on the day when I get assessed. So next question, what feedback did I get from staff on what to improve and for the next weeks that I've got coming up? So one thing I was told when we were doing Found Tonight on the Wednesday, when we were being assessed as the full year group, was, and also before we did our assessment, when we did a few practice runs, was to not rush ahead of the backing track. Because the one thing I did a lot of was when I started my solo, because there's only like a piano playing in the backing track, because it's just like a one instrumental that you can have alongside your vocals. The one thing to listen out for is knowing the right time to come in, because it's a backing track, you know, you have to really pay real attention to it. If it was live and you had live instruments, people will just listen out to your cue. But with backing tracks, you've got to be very conscious about the right cue to come in, because if you miss your cue, then that's it, you've missed it. So the most important thing is to not rush, to not slow, find the right time to get right into it. And so that's the one thing I need to be very careful of, especially if the backing track was going to be used live. If I'm going to be doing my solo and I miss it or I rush it, it's not going to sound as effective, and it will just seem rushed or too slow for the audience to feel engaged with it. So it's really key to make sure that you know the right timing just to come in. And yeah, and also I was told not to be the loudest out of everyone else in the ensemble, even in the quiet moments. So even in the bit where I go, even when the dark comes crashing through, when you need a friend to carry you, when you're broken on the ground. You know, that bit is really quite somber and it's quiet. But at the same time, even though it's quiet and you still need to project, it's all about listening to everyone else. And that's where using your one ear to listen to everyone else is quite crucial. Although the only problem is when you're doing it as part of a musical, you can't just go, even when the dark comes crashing through, because that would look awkward and it wouldn't look in character. But as you would know, that's why like singers would get like ear monitors in one ear and have one ear open. But that won't always happen. So it's really important that you're able to listen with both ears and use your ears effectively to listen. Otherwise it won't look great. So that's one thing that I need to be aware of when it comes to projecting and singing as part of the ensemble. Even in the small parts, just make it really, try and keep in sync as much as you can. And even though everyone else might not be as loud, people might not have the same projection, it's important just to listen to how they sing it. Because if you just try and make yourself the loudest, it will drown everyone out and it will just sound rubbish. And it will just sound like someone's trying to dominate, and you don't want to sound like the dominant force of a... It's like if it's like in a band, if one instrument is dominating the rest of the instrumentals, then it ruins the whole concert. So it's the same thing with choirs and for musicals. Don't overpower everyone else. So yeah, and try and think, and also work on how being a lot more sharper with when I'm clenching down when doing the greatest show. So in the moment when you're having to sharpen yourself down and you're having to like fully immerse yourself down and block yourself out with everyone else, there I just need to work more on how sharp I can just get that in, so it's not like it's like, you know, otherwise it would just look rubbish if it was not that sharper, and that looks so much more effective than if you just make it really floppy. No floppiness in dance, because you don't like floppiness. We like real strength and real energy that gives to it. So that's something I was told to be careful of for my choreography of The Greatest Show. How am I going to apply this feedback to achieve my goals? So listen to the backing track as much as I can. Maybe ask Carly what backing track I can what the backing track is, maybe look at the link on YouTube if it was off YouTube, and just listen in and make sure that I'm familiar with my cues. Because if I'm not familiar with my cues and we haven't done it we haven't looked over the song for the last few weeks, and we go straight into Tech Run for Winterfest, and I go back to the same process that I was before the assessment. That could frustrate the rest of the students. It could frustrate the staff because they've told you already, don't do that. So it's good to remind yourself before going into those tech runs to fully familiarise yourself with what you need to make sure you don't do that I did before when working towards the assessment. So it makes it make it look like it's been improved as well. Because when you do it for an assessment, you know, that's the first time doing it, but you want to improve from doing it again because you've learnt something and you want to try and learn new ways of making it better. So yeah. So, and the next bit I would say is mark the choreography as much as I can, especially with fellow students. So maybe use Georgia Pine, who is like next to me in the jazz section of The Greatest Show. Ask her if she's familiar with it, and maybe ask her just to recap it so it's fully up here. So it's not like I'm just going and I haven't even tried to use other resources to help me affect the choreography better. Just use other people, because, you know, some people have better movement memory, and movement memory just comes quickly. Some maybe not as much, but that's where you've got to find the right people who will help you get to the right area, so that you are fully so you fully know what you're doing. So it's not like you're just going in, you're just expecting to know the choreography without practicing at home, or without practicing with other people, that you're just going to know it without practicing it. It's not the same, and it won't make it that good because you've not really put in more time outside of rehearsals, and it will just not make it look effective. So it's important enough to make the most of your time outside of rehearsal hours, just to work on where you need to improve, and let it happen and let things go and let it just happen as it comes. So how is this going to support my personal statement? So what I would really say is using fellow students is a good skill to have that you can use for a personal statement, because that way you're showing that you're trying to make an effort in you trying to use your collaborative skills with other students. And in performing arts, for any performing arts based course, it's essential that you are making an effort to collaborate with fellow students and to collaborate with staff as well. You know, it's important to have that connection and to even try, even when you know it's not working to the right standard where you want to work, even if there's some who might not be as competent, who might not be as up to the right standard that you want them to be, then you just need to try and let it just build in, you know. So get it to the right standard, and just go and ask people that you can trust, and just use what you can do, and say to yourself, ask someone you can trust and see how well they know a choreography, see how well they know a song, how well they know a monologue, know their lines. And if you're struggling, just go to people, because sometimes, even if you might have the best line memory, you might have the best lyric memory, the best choreography memory, some people still need that extra push. And sometimes they just need a bit of team effort to help them get better. And, you know, I mean, it's probably the same. You know, my choreography memory is not as strong as line memory or lyric memory, because I've worked on lines and worked on songs for years, so it's kind of like a natural thing to just process and get yourself right into. Whilst with choreography, I've done it for less years, so it takes me more time to learn something. Whilst with other students, they've probably done it for as long as I've been doing, since I've been working on songs, since I've been doing plays, which just rely on you learning lines and just getting yourself into character. And so it's the same thing. It's working out who to go to at the right time and to be in the right place to get that support that you can get. And it's always helpful to try your best to get on with everyone, even if, you know, you don't agree with everything they say. Try and make the effort to do so, because if the worst comes to worst and you make the effort, people will notice it, and it will just show that you've made the effort to try and work with other fellow students, even if you have to do everything yourself. You know, making that effort is better than not, because if you don't, people will just think you're just being selfish and stubborn. And in performing arts, that's a no-no. Never be stubborn and never be arrogant. Just be open and warm to as much of the fellow students you're working with and fellow staff members you're working with. So that's really important. And apart from that, yeah, that's all I can really say for now. I hope you enjoyed this video of Viva Voce Week 9, and I thank you very much for watching. This is Alexander Hall, and I bid you goodbye.